Now, for the next few minutes, let's have a visual treat, because this is what the critics say about my next guest. His brilliantly observed street images changed photography. His career is a mini history of photography. He himself said, "I hope in 20 years there's a body of work that says this is how it feels to be alive in New York City." His new book, Where I Find Myself, charts that body of work and is just out, and Joel Meyerowitz is here in the studio. Welcome here to the programme. Wow, what an extraordinary career. I mean, you're absolutely famed for your brilliantly observed street images. Why did you choose that particular area?
Life on the streets in New York is such a thrilling experience. It's always dynamic, unexpected, and I had this hunger to be out on the streets. I had a job as an art director in an agency, and all day long I would look out the window and think, I want to be there. And so when I had that opportunity, I went to the street.
And look, these are some of your fantastic images there on the streets. I mean, you say about your own work that you say you see photography as ideas, not just pictures. Another fabulous pertinent line: phones are killing the sexiness of the street.
Yeah, well, you know, in the past, the street was really innocent. People just moved through it. There were interesting dynamics and relationships that no one out there could see, but a photographer could put together these things that didn't belong together. But nowadays, everyone's on the phone or talking this way, and they're not relating with each other. And I feel that some of that energy is missing now because it's so mechanical.
And how do you approach getting these shots? How do you do it? Do you just walk around spotting stuff, or is it planned out in your mind?
I'm sort of a French flâneur. I walk the streets just to enjoy myself and be out there. And observations come if you're fresh in that way, if you're open to it. But if you're looking for something, you know, it's like looking for treasure. You don't always find it. You just have to be there, and luck prevails.
And your work spans so many generations. 9/11, I want to talk about that for the next few minutes, because you were told at the time you couldn't photograph from ground zero. It was being treated as a crime scene. So I read that you contacted a friend of yours who was a parks commissioner, so you could become an employee and get a worker's pass. Why was it so important for you to actually be there to be photographing?
Well, as you've experienced in London at these difficult times, as a native New Yorker, I wanted to help. I wanted to be useful in some way, and there was nothing that I could do. And one day, when a police officer said to me, "No photographs, buddy, this is a crime scene, and the press will not be going in," I thought, history won't be recorded. And I had that light bulb moment. I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go inside there. I'll find a way in, and I'll make the record, and I'll give this record to the Museum of the City of New York or some institution. And so I thought that would be my contribution. And I was doing it as a not-for-profit thing.
And that's exactly what you did, wasn't it? You got, in the end, unrestricted access. I mean, I think I read you were there for 9 months. I mean, how many photographs did you actually take during that period?
There's over 8,000 different photographs made in the course of that period. I was in there for 9 months, from like 4 or 5 days afterwards to after they closed the site.
Now, way before all of that, back in 1962, you started using colour in your photography. I mean, your book, Cape Like, is considered a classic work of colour photography. I mean, back then, give me an idea of how much resistance there was to using colour amongst photographers.
Well, when I began, in all innocence, and I put colour in the camera and showed it to people, and they said, "Well, why isn't this in black and white?" And I thought, well, the world's in colour. And they said, "No, but black and white is considered serious. This other stuff is for weddings and you know, magazines and advertising." And I thought, how could that be? Color is rich with emotion, and we have an opportunity to express ourselves fully in the spectrum of color. And so I've always been a sort of missionary, you might say, for color photography.
Now, we spoke earlier about 9/11. You charted America and what Vietnam did to the psyche of the nation over many years. But, you know, aside from periods like that and events like that, I mean, you also catalogue in your career life, love, beauty, happiness, uplifting events.
Yeah, I feel that it's important to give the good news too. And what I see in the world always gives me a joyous response. Just being out in the street makes me feel good.
I love this one. there. Central Park, is that, or somewhere else? The two images were fantastic, and I talk about joy and love and uplifting. I mean, that just absolutely comes across. Again, random. You were just walking around and spot these things.
Right, things happen in front of me. But if you're not paying attention, and photography is all about paying attention. If you're not paying attention, then you don't see these things. And I think of photography as having moments of consciousness where suddenly I feel alert and awake because the world is showing me some, invisible gift, only visible to me at that moment because I'm willing to observe it in that way.
And if you had to give advice to a young photographer starting out, what would you say to them?
I would say, clear your mind of all of your projections and desires. Just go out and be. And a kind of consciousness will come to you because you're in search of your identity. And your identity comes to you because you see things, you feel that gasp of excitement and recognition. And so be open.
Just a final question, because I tried to get you to tell me what your favourite photograph was. You were absolutely reluctant to do that. I understand that. But I mean, this is your new book on the desk, and that photograph with someone who's fallen over there in New York. Loads and loads of people ask you about that photograph.
Yeah.
What was behind that? How did that happen? Where did that come from?
It's in Paris. It was just a moment. I saw a crowd on the street. I went towards, because I always go towards where the magnetism is. I went towards the crowd, and just at that moment, I see a man on the sidewalk and another man with a hammer stepping over him. All pedestrians are turned, looking at the event. I raised the camera and I made the photograph. But what really moved me afterwards was that there was a kind of story apparent there. Man with a hammer, fallen man, did he do this? But the real story is, why didn't those people help that man? So it was an image of urban life.
And always a story behind the picture. Joel, it's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you so much for coming in and joining us here on the programme.